morning, everybody. Ted Haggard here from St. James Church in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Right now, I'm leading the Storehouse, which is the house church ministry of St. James, and it is a real delight. Hey, today we're talking about 1 Corinthians, the 11th chapter, and that's where God gives us instructions about public worship, which is really controversial. And then he gives us a discussion on communion and orderly services. So I'll get through as much of this as I can here in our 15 minutes together. As a presupposition for all of this, I want to talk for just a minute about when you say to somebody else, "How are you?" Now, I'm not talking about when you pull up to Taco Bell and they say, "How are you?" Or if a marketing person calls you on the phone and they start off with, "How are you?" They don't really care. Their boss just taught them to say that. But if a friend asks you that, very often people will respond with, "Yeah, I need to talk to you. I'm really miserable," or "I'm brokenhearted," or whatever it may be. All right. So once you start to talk with them, they very often will mention a problem relationship. They'll say, "That person is driving me crazy," or they'll say, "That person makes me so angry," or "I'm upset because my daughter did this," or "My son did that." And it kind of, what they're communicated is that they were either felt disrespected or uncared for, or they had an expectation that wasn't fulfilled. And so I have some principles about that I think are really important. Number one, I don't have expectations of people, only of God. All right. So everybody I'm around, I'm grateful for. If they didn't send me a card on Thanksgiving, I don't even notice, or on birthday, I don't even notice. But if they do, I notice. So if you have no expectations of other people, it puts you in a position where you can just be grateful. All right. And so that sets the stage for a really wonderful life, no matter what your field is or what you're doing. You just lower your expectations of others. Now, if you're their boss or their parent or whatever, you have to have some expectations. But once they're grown, don't have expectations and just be grateful for anything they do. The second thing is I don't forfeit my emotions to other people's actions. So in other words, if somebody says, "Boy, they really make me angry," what really happened is that person did something that they observed and that gave them information. And then with the information, they decided to get angry. Or, "I feel really betrayed." All right. What happened was something happened. It hurt their feelings. That information went into their brain and they decided to get angry. Okay. Do you stop at red lights when you're driving your car? Most people say yes. Okay. Did the red light force them to stop? No. The red light gave them the information that cars were going to be going the other way and that there was a higher likelihood of them being dead in a few minutes if they run that red light. So the information goes into their brain and they choose to stop. All right. Now, if they have different information, they're rushing to the hospital with a choking child. Okay, that may mean they'll turn on their flashers, they'll be honking their horn, and when they approach the red light, they'll slow way, way down, honking their horn, looking every direction, and then they speed through. All right, so that means they got the same information. They had different information. They processed it in their brain, and rather than sitting there for 2 minutes while their child was dying, they decided to take a different set of actions, but they considered the consequences. And so that's how we work. So you'll never hear me say, "So-and-so made me angry," or "So-and-so caused me to feel betrayed." See, other people can neither make us miserable or make us happy. All we can get from them is information. And when we get that information, then we make decisions about what we're going to do. We choose all of our actions. Now, this is huge for those of you that think you may be an addict for something or whatever. In the end of it, we chose to start, we choose to stop. Now, If we've become addicted, we may have to fight our own brains or our own chemical makeup, but we choose our thoughts. We have to understand that our life is well, how about this? If we're sick, if we're angry, if we're bitter, if we are in a negative situation with people, very often we chose that. We chose to say something or do something or whatever. So we are much more in control of our lives than we think. So we have a genetic makeup. The genetic makeup is there. But more importantly, we have the ability to make decisions. Okay, now the first part of this chapter, we're in chapter 11 of 1 Corinthians. It's about public worship, which interestingly enough has a lot to do with men and women. Okay, now, when Paul talks about this, he's not talking about weaknesses. He's not talking about value. He's not talking about importance. He just talks some about roles. It's about the strength each person brings, the man and the woman. And it talks about how to live in harmony with one another and how to do what's important. When I proposed to Gail, I told her everything I knew about God's calling on my life and my life. And then I said, would you like to be part of that calling? She said, yes. And so I said, well, then would you marry me? So we got married for a purpose. We've had 5 children during that time. We've had a wonderful pastoral ministry, our lives. And there's never been a competition between our family and the church work because the purpose of our family is the church. See, we have a family mission statement, and part of it says to build the body of Christ through local church ministry. All right. And so we're devoted to that. Okay. So here when Paul talks about this, he starts off by talking about public worship. And he says, I'm so glad you always keep me in your thoughts and that you are following the teachings I passed on to you. Okay, so there he's talking about how he respects him. But there is one thing I want you to know. The head of every man is Christ. All right, so in other words, he's saying every man should have a purpose from Christ. Every man should have an intercessory prayer ministry. Every man should read his Bible and go to a men's Bible study. Every man has to have connection with Christ. And then it says the head of woman is man. So in other words, men, here's what it's saying. Men need help. Okay. And so when a man gets an idea, he immediately solicits help. All right. And a woman is called to a man to help the man accomplish his purpose from that connectivity. All right. Now, it's fine for women to work. Fine. They're equal. They're important. They're valuable. And actually, most older men believe behind every great man is a great woman. And somehow God designed us so that the purpose for the man comes from Christ, and the purpose for the woman is a man, and the head of Christ is God. All right. A man dishonors his head if he covers his head while praying and prophesying. In other words, we're supposed, all right, now here's a cultural thing. Look down, if you would please, at verse 16 where it says, but if anyone wants to argue about this, I simply say that we have no other custom than this. All right. And neither do God's other churches. So the custom is that men have shorter hair and they pray and they prophesy and they connect with the Lord. Women also connect with the Lord, but they wear longer hair to communicate that their heads are covered. Okay, so the longer hair, and there are exceptions to it, this is a custom, but it communicates that they're submitted and that they get power from that. Now, this is really controversial right now, all right? But it's very interesting where it says, a man dishonors his head if he covers his head while praying and prophesying. But a woman dishonors her head if she prays or prophesies without a covering on her head, for this is the same as shaving her head. So that's the whole issue about longer hair for women. Yes, if she refuses to wear a head covering, she should cut off all her hair. But since it is shameful for a woman to have her hair cut or her head shaved. She should wear a covering. So women are the helpers. Women are the completers. Men cannot do their finest work if they don't have a helper completer like that. All right, let's talk about sex a little bit. All right. Men, if their wife goes their own way, and the man to build his team ends up with a woman that works closely to the man's going to be grateful for his helper completer. The man is going to be grateful for the people that help him accomplish his task. And how many times have you heard the story? I won't have to complete that. And so what this really talks about is an attitude. It's an attitude toward husbands. It's an attitude toward men. It's an attitude for men to respect their wives, because if the men don't respect and honor their wives, their prayers are hindered. The whole thing doesn't work. And in Ephesians 5, when it talks about Jesus being the head of the church, it says he becomes the head of the church because he was the servant of all. Okay, so the man's purpose is the calling of Christ, but it includes caring for, protecting, loving his wife. So some women would say, I don't need a man to protect me. Well, you might. You might. And men need a woman. They complement one another. See, they have a value to one another. They have an importance to one another. And that attitude is communicated by the way we dress. Because women, now here I am talking about our customs. Women should look different than men. Okay, all right. I'm going to close with one horrible story that happened to me just 2 days ago. Okay, I have a friend that performs a function here in the community for me. All right, I had never seen him though. I'd only talked with him over the phone. We've talked money, we've talked projects, we've talked all kinds of things, but I'd never met him. Okay, so I have a meeting with him down here on the south side of the city. And he pulls up. He didn't look at all like I thought he would. He had an old rundown truck, and he got out and he had old jeans on and an old shirt on, and he was scruffy, got overweight and just really scruffy. And so I shook his hand, said, good to meet you, good to meet you. And in this truck, piled high with junk, was a woman, hair down to about here. And so I said what I say to some guys who've been married a long time. Hey, is that your girlfriend? So I said that to him. Neither of them said a thing. Okay, so we got out and we were looking at the project that I wanted to hire him to do. And the other person that was in the truck with the long hair was there kind of looking at it. And he said something to the guy I was hiring, and he was a man. And so I went, oh my gosh, you're a man. All right, now we're to the place where there's no way to redeem the situation. Because, very often a scruffy guy will be married to a scruffy woman. And so it kind of looked the part. But I'll tell you what, I missed it 1,000%. And if I would have known him better, I would have said, here's $30, go get a haircut. So anyway, they ignored it. I ignored it. That's a good example of social control. And I said, thank you guys. I appreciate your help. And as I was getting ready to drive off in my truck, I heard the helper guy to him, the guy I thought was his wife, I heard him say, hey, did you hear I'm a man? So it's a terrible situation. This chapter takes care of that problem. It's not about wearing a little whatever on a head. It's about an attitude of us serving Christ, serving our wives, serving our family, giving our lives away. The same is true for the last half of this chapter when it talks about order at the Lord's Supper. Here, beginning in verse 20, it says, when you meet together, and essentially that paragraph talks about serve other people first. Stop feeding yourself first. Then he talks about the Lord's Supper, communion. And at the end of that, He says, if anyone who eats and drinks this cup of the Lord in an unworthy is guilty of sinning against the body of the Lord. Well, the context here is serving others first. All right. So serving others first is an indicator that we're Christians. So we use our authority, power, and money to serve others. But when we serve ourselves first, we become unworthy to receive the Lord's Supper. It brings a curse. It essentially brings problems on our life. All right, that's enough. It's great talking with you this morning. I love you very much. And enjoy the rest of your week. Build relationships and take care of one another. All right, bye-bye.